I suck at jiu-jitsu. How do I suck less at jiu-jitsu?
I guess to suck less.
Ladies and gentlemen, the diabolical leader of the Head Knot
Hey everybody, this is Josh McKinney, and I just want to welcome you to the newest episode of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. So, we are back to interviews. Like last week, I guess we're only interviewing Asian people. We just had Steve Kwan on last week, and now we have Mark Vives. I always make sure to make the joke. You guys, if you're watching online, you'll get it. No, Mark Vives is not my dad. Everybody sees the other Asian TAC Team Black Belt, and me and Mark always competing side by side all the time. And I think that there's an assumption that Mark Vives is my dad. He's not my dad, I swear. My dad's white, bro. You guys have met my dad. Podcast listeners know that he's not my dad. But that's always that joke always goes well when we're both at the same seminar or something like that. But on this episode, if you guys don't know Mark, he's been on the show 2 other times. And to me, Mark is one of the most consistent competitors that I know. He competes more than anybody I know, and is also a very great competitor too. And he has a very unique perspective on looking at getting to compete all the time, looking at getting to compete basically every weekend. And you guys will hear that as we discuss what tournaments he has coming up, what kind of breaks he's going to be taking between the tournaments. But what we really wanted to focus on this time is the perfect week of jiu-jitsu training, and so and what that kind of looks like for Mark. And so we kind of take this episode into 2 separate parts, in my opinion. And the first part is Mark's kind of him getting to be around some really high-level NFL players, and him getting to relate NFL and jiu-jitsu competition. And one of the biggest relationships is that in the NFL, when you're in season, you are competing every single weekend. And you are competing once, and the games are incredibly valuable. Every play is very valuable. And so being able to perform at your best is just so important. It's not like maybe like us trying to get similarities between like Major League Baseball, where they have 162 games a year. In their playoff games, their playoff series, you can lose 3 games. In jiu-jitsu, you can't really do that because things tend to be single elimination tournament style, and it's just it does feel a lot more. The similarities make a lot more sense to the NFL. And so we've done actually a few episodes. We just recently did in our Jiu-Jitsu is series an episode on Jiu-Jitsu is professional football, and a lot of those ideas I really got from Mark. I remember a couple of years ago he started to break down why his training regimen is the way that it is, and it's to allow him to compete every single weekend. And we start this episode with Mark specifically and what he does, and I think that people will find a lot of value in that. But I think that most people are going to just, especially people that are wanting to be competitors, are going to absolutely love when we start to deconstruct and say, okay, well, we start to put some constraints on Mark and say, well, how would you set up a person to be a competitor in this, with these constraints, if you can only train 3 days a week. And not to steal the big reveal, but Mark gives information, gives a true perspective on being a competitor that can only dedicate 3 days throughout each week to jiu-jitsu. And to me, it was I've talked to Mark about these things countless times at this point. Every time I see him, I ask him, I pick his brain on these things, and he provided some information. He's probably said it to me before, it just has never sunk in, but he provided some information on how to separate your days of training, and what to be actually looking for on each day that was kind of mind-blowing for me. And so I'm really excited to get to share this episode with you. I think you guys will really like it. Before we get into the episode, as always, we have a Thursday episode coming out. It's going to be a solo episode. But if you're a big ISAJJ Jiu-Jitsu show fan, I highly recommend you check that episode out, because we're going to follow a little bit different of a format. And I think that it could fall flat. People could hate it, but I really think that you're going to enjoy this different format. And I think that for at least a while, that's going to be the format going forward on these Thursday episodes. And so if you haven't checked out a Thursday episode in a while, I think this next one is going to be the one to click the notification bell to mark your calendars for. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the conversation with me and Mark Vives. Mark, how are you doing, man?
I am doing well. How are you?
I am doing good, man. Everything's good. Like we were talking before, a little exhausted with the baby being here, but still here, still alive.
I got 3 to 6 months. I'm telling you, 3 to 6 months, and then after that, after you have your second kid, you're just not going to care about that other kid anymore.
I don't think I'm ready to be talking about second kids right now.
Yeah.
My wife and I are still agreeing, like, yeah, I don't see how anyone else would have a second kid after what we've experienced so far. You know?
You aren't a true parent until you have that second kid, especially if they're pretty close in age, because at that point you got to figure out who did what. Because then they all start blaming each other. So right now you're just like you're playing AAA ball right now. You're in the minor leagues right now.
It's like you're not the champ until you defend your title.
Exactly. There you go. I believe in that as well.
So I thought for us, just a good place to start. And this conversation is something that I feel like I've asked you more about than maybe anything else. But I still always, every time we see each other, always have questions kind of about training regimen and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought a good place to start with this would just be a little context for the listener. So in the next, let's say 6 weeks, and the next 6 weeks is when nobody really competes. It's the holidays. We're at the beginning of November. We're November 9th today. So most people, for someone like me, a competitor, I'm competing 0 times in the next 6 weeks. For you, how many times will you be competing in the next?
I have Nashville on Saturday, and then the week after that, I have Atlanta. And then I've broken my own rule, which is usually do not compete from Thanksgiving all the way through New Year's. So I've broken my own rule because of No-Gi Worlds, because they have conveniently or inconveniently moved it to December, the second week of December. So I'm still in season, if you will. And then after that, I go into my 6 weeks of gluttony and off season, so to speak, where I just eat whatever I wanted and just kind of go from there.
It was funny. I saw you post, I don't even think I commented this, but I saw you post on Instagram something like, it was 3 weeks after Master Worlds, you're like, yeah, I'm so glad that I got all this time off and now we're ready to get back at it. And I'm like, Mark, it hasn't even been a month yet, dude. Like, what kind of off season was that?
Yeah, that's true. That's an off season for me. 4 weeks is a long time not to compete for me.
And so just kind of from there, I really wanted to start with this conversation that we had. I want to say might have been almost 2 years ago now. But it was when I was really starting to kind of rededicate and go, I really want to be a competitor. I had this chance. We were at the Stronghold Jiu-Jitsu camp, and I got to pick your brain. And I remember just asking you, Mark, how do you compete every weekend? And your answer was, well, I compete every weekend. And it's one of those like black belt answers that you're like, wait. I need more context. And so when you say that, can you kind of just give an explanation of, because obviously you are competing 3 times in the next 6 weeks. But on top of that, even on those off weeks, you still compete every weekend. Can you give kind of some context of what that looks like?
Sure. So for the longest time, me, much like everyone else, is always trying to search for that perfect training regimen, something that works for them, given their lifestyle and everything else. And for me, I've been very fortunate of having the ability to uh, be exposed to a lot of professional athletes. Olin Kreutz, the former Chicago Bear, future Hall of Famer, he played 14 seasons in the NFL at the highest level, I believe, and probably kill me for this, but I believe he was a Pro Bowler 10 out of the 14 years, and I think he was a first team All Pro 6 out of those 14 years, first team All Pro. So he just by watching him, we never really had any major discussions or anything like that, but just by watching him train, he's long retired. Just by watching him train, work with his two sons that now play NCAA football for the University of Illinois, just watching him work with them and just watching him work out in general, and also work at that time too, uh, conveniently with guys that were making the transition from NCAA to the NFL. um, I got to see a lot of basically their training methodology and their training kind of mentality about the whole thing. So for me, and again, at that time, I didn't really know anything. This is how many years back. I didn't really know anything. I was just like, lift weights, train hard. Uh, if you're recovered and hurt, still keep training. just keep going until the wheels fall off. Well, the wheels were starting to fall off, so I just had to like train smarter, not harder, as they say. So I saw him working with a bunch of other NFL linemen on the Bears and also from other teams as well too. And they would be talking about different training regimens off season and in season. So I would just listen. I would be in the gym with them in his private gym, just listening and everything, and just observing and seeing exactly how hard they pushed on what days and kind of how they recovered, everything else. And basically, I kind of and you know me, Josh. You've known me for a long time. I draw a lot of parallels to professional football and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
Mhm.
So I sat there and kind of took what they did in season, and I basically kind of like day by day what their goals were every single day, both in practice and also both like on the field, off the field, and pretty much just kind of assimilate that into the world of competitive Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, which would also obviously work if you're a casual as well too. So for me, it just basically like, for example, and we're all armchair quarterbacks here, like we're all NFL fans. You'll always hear about after an NFL game on a Sunday. You'll always hear about like an offense, like they'll usually get Monday off, and then Tuesdays an offensive install, Wednesdays a defensive install. Then what you call it? Thursday is usually special teams install and kind of working in your regular position groups. Friday is usually kind of like a rest day and a travel day as well too. Saturday you're going to walk through, and then you perform on Sunday. And then you repeat the procedure over and over and over again, and so forth and so on, bearing any adjustments for a Monday night game or a Thursday game or a bye week. And I kind of took that and I literally sat there and drew it up on a for competition week, and for like basically it was in season Brazilian Jiu Jitsu competition week. Like that's basically how I kind of like fashioned my training regimen. So instead of, and of course, most jiu-jitsu competitions were competing on Saturdays. So obviously, Sunday would be your recovery day. Monday would be like your offensive install. Tuesday, defensive install. Wednesday, like so forth, so forth and so on, leading all the way up to like Friday, which is your travel day. And then you compete on Saturday. So putting into context what I said to you, I compete every week, even if I'm physically not traveling to a competition and going to be competing. I will literally walk into our Saturday open mat, and literally go into that with the mindset of I'm going to pick out the best, toughest guys that are like in the room, regardless of belt, and I'm going to compete with them. I will let them know like, hey, we're going to run around, we're going to score points, we're going to treat this like an actual competition match, or we're going to fight and we're going to go and we're going to compete against each other. Win or lose doesn't matter. You sit there and you take the next. You could take the next round off. You find the next person, compete with that person, and then the next person, compete with that person. A lot of what I do from like a long term perspective, if you will, is currently right now there are 16 people in my division at Nogi Worlds. So I'm going to plan to compete at least 4 times every Saturday, plus open weights and everything else. So I'll probably add another 4 matches. So there's going to be 8 hard rounds that I will do, 8 to 9 hard rounds that I will do every Saturday. So, for example, leading up to World Masters, that was a division of 50 some odd people. So, at worst case scenario, 6 matches. However, I even if I have the bye, I will always assume that I will fight that extra match, and I will go in doing that. So that's kind of like what my like overall Saturday, my competitive Saturday looks like, even if I'm not competing. If I just am going into someone's open mat or teaching a workshop or seminar or what have you, say in St. Louis or whatever the case may be, I will sit there and pick 6 people or more and just be like, we're going to train and we're going to compete against each other and we're going to go. And it doesn't matter if we win or lose. I'm going to move myself to the next round and compete again. And that's just what happens on a Saturday. Of course, Sunday, you need to recover from that stuff, especially if you're picking out the monsters in the room and everything like that. But Sunday, I will still go. That's my recovery day. That I will still go into the gym, and I'll definitely lift, and I'll always do a lot of recovery work. My recovery work consists of a lot of muscle activation therapy, a lot of foam rolling, body tempering, and everyone has different recovery methods as well too. So cryo, whatever you can get your hands on, stretching, obviously, you have to recover. You have to take that. But of course, at the same time, I still may hit the mats a little bit. And if I do, it is literally just to kind of stay loose, work out the kinks, so to speak, maybe troubleshoot a little bit. But I never want to be overly strained, such that when I go in on Monday, which would be my quote unquote offensive install, I want to be ready for that. So as you referenced before, you need some performance days throughout the week. I train 7 days a week. So even if I'm obviously 6 days a week and then compete, but I'm on the mat 7 days a week. That offensive install day for me is basically me trying to kind of install what guard that I want or what things that I want to work on specifically for that next coming tournament or what have you. That's me trying to actually implement that. I go into every training session, every rolling session with at least a goal in mind of what I want to do from if I play guard, and if I end up playing top. At the very, very least, there's always at least 2 things that I will try to position myself with, and that's not even a performance day. Say, for example, on Monday, I trained twice on Monday. One obviously at New Breed, and then the other one at Asher's gym. So I would go in and I would specifically just only try to work the positions that I wanted to work, or the specific things that I wanted to work from those positions. And I'm just drilling it and drilling it and drilling it and drilling it and drilling it, even during live rounds. My performance day is on Tuesday. So Tuesday, for me, usually what that looks like in the morning is I will go in and get a big lift. That's like my max effort day. And I'll go in and I will, usually it's a max effort lower day, hit your heavy deads, hit your heavy squats, and then a bunch of accessory work as well too. So I actually combined, for lifting methodology, I combined a lot of the the West Side conjugate method. There's a ton of articles and a ton of information on that available on the web. So I usually sit there and hit max effort lower day on Tuesday, and then I'll come back immediately at the same time, work a dynamic upper day, and then a bunch of accessories to strengthen whatever where the weaknesses are. So, for example, right now I have a little kink in my scap, which affects my lats and also affects my shoulders. So I will work a lot on little things like that to strengthen my shoulders and my lats to allow me to perform. And then
on just real quick, on those days on your lifts, you have those separated pretty far out from your actual competition, correct? Is that why on a Tuesday?
Correct. So it's a Tuesday. So I don't want to, and I'll explain that in a second too. So that'll be like a Tuesday morning. And then I'll come back Tuesday night, and that's going to be performance time. I will go in. I've had more than enough rest. I've had at least 4 to 6 hours of rest in between a major lift and major max effort lift. and then I'll go in and try to perform and compete with everyone on Tuesday night, on a Tuesday evening. It'll be the hardest practice of the week. It'll be the most intense, if you will, and just
I've been there.
constantly.
I've enjoyed the New Breed Tuesday night session.
Yeah, just try to really push. Not a lot of water breaks, and just kind of try to really, really push through and perform. Again, I'll have two things in my mind, one from top, one from bottom, that I'm going to try to really hit the whole time. That's like my performance day. So that's like my other install day, if you will. Wednesday for me, I take it a little bit easier, and one of the two main reasons why is because number one, like that Tuesday lifting day, a lower body day, a max effort lower body day is always kind of a little taxing on the body, especially the back and everything else. And also the hard training sessions in the evening. I mean, you've been there, like you said. You need a day to kind of wind down a little bit. So Wednesdays, I'll go in, I'll train again. And for me, I'm kind of just basically doing a walkthrough of what happened the last 2 days. If something happened to me, if I was deficient in something, I will actually work specifically on that, putting myself in the exact same scenarios and just kind of like learning to work my way out of it. And also kind of game planning to how to not be put in bad positions, or in game planning how, like, a little bit. It's basically the strategic game planning day. It's like a film day for me.
Mm-hmm.
Thursday comes back in. I will have another max effort day, but that's always a little bit easier because max effort upper for me is always a little bit easier than lower. And then from there, it's less taxing, so to speak. And from there, I'll have a quote unquote performance day, another performance day, but it's nowhere near as bad as Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
That performance day, all I'm really trying to do is I'm going to pick people. I'm going to roll at a very fast pace in that Thursday evening, fast pace, but at the same time, I'm not going to fight, so to speak, too hard, mainly because I want to be well rested for Saturday when I compete. So on Thursday nights, I'm thinking more speed. I'm thinking more agility. I'm thinking more deny grips, more of the like very. It is a performance day, but I'm micromanaging every aspect of it all, ensuring that that I stay connected to my opponent, ensuring that I have the grips that I want all the time, that I'm fighting for those grips. Like this evening, it's a Thursday right now. When I go to train tonight, it'll literally just be me trying to get about 6 rounds in, 30 minutes worth of work, for lack of better terms, of just constantly ensuring that I'm in control and putting myself in a position. After I put myself in a position, I really don't care what happens in that round. Like I really don't care. I'll sit there and kind of just like I'll give up a grip, or I'll give up a hook, and just work out of different positions, and then to get back to that attacking position. I try to be very consistent with that all throughout the round and all throughout the evening. And then Friday, usually your travel day,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll also do a little bit of a walkthrough, at least mentally. So for example, tomorrow I have a 3 p.m. flight to Nashville. I'll still go in the morning. I may or may not suit up to train, but at the same time, that training is just going to be okay. I'll choose my partners very carefully as to not get hurt, and then I'll basically just literally be like, okay, I want you to try to do this, and I'm just going to kind of walk through it, nice and smooth. It's basically designated winner. And for me, I'm designating which positions where I want to get to. As soon as I get to there again, that's fine. And it's at a very nice and slow pace.
Will this on Friday, will that be like opponent specific for your matches on Saturday? Hey guys, Josh McKinney here. Just want to interrupt this episode really quick and tell you guys about something really cool that we have going on at simplifyingjujitsu.com. So, as I told you guys at the beginning of this episode, Mark Vives is not my dad. Steve McKinney is my dad. And my dad, Steve, and I just got done updating our most recent our most recent course that we have on simplifyingjujitsu.com. And I thought it would be a really good time to tell you guys about it, because we're talking strength and conditioning. We're talking about being efficient with our training in this episode with Mark. And to me, there is no better way to be efficient in your jiu-jitsu training than to only have to dedicate 15 to 30 minutes per week on your strength and conditioning. And I know that sounds like an impossible feat, but this is something that I have done for years and have been able to compete at adult black belt, and compete at adult black belt where a lot of guys that I compete against are on steroids and I am not. And so this big update, we just added an hour worth of seminar and another 30 minutes worth of actual workouts for you to be able to dissect. And then we also just added an ebook to help you kind of determine what workouts to start with and to give you some routines to start to mess with. And this workout is for both at home or if you have access to a gym. We have programs for both. There is, to me, this whole program is just so easy to follow, so easy to understand. And like I said, it has been helpful for me to be able to stay healthy, stay on the mat, not waste my time at the gym constantly, because I know if you guys are like me, my time is valuable, and it is important for me to not just be spending countless hours at the gym all the time trying to get big strength gains when I can do it in 15 to 30 minutes. And again, this is only available at simplifyingjujitsu.com. And if you purchase, you will get access to what we call the Steve Bundle, and it is half off of my dad's 2 latest instructionals, Train at 60 and Beyond and How to Learn Jiu-Jitsu. And so there's just so much value if you go in and check out Efficient Strength for BJJ, our newest course at simplifyingjujitsu.com. Let's go ahead and get back into the interview.
It's always opponent specific for me, to be honest with you. A lot of what I'm installing, I look at it this way: in the off season in the NFL, to draw another parallel, you're in the off season, so to speak. You are installing that base game plan, that base package of formations, of plays that you know you can run, and so forth and so on. Your bread and butter throughout the week. Basically, if you do go through a long period of where you're not going to compete. So for me this year, it's going to be December 11th all the way up until probably the second week of January. So that would be what? January 13th, up until that time. That is going to be my off season. It's going to be a month.
Your 6-week off season you just told me about just changed into a 4-week off season.
That's same thing. So it's a 4-week off season, but during that time, I'll be reinstalling base packages, my base offense, my base defense, everything else, and be able to, for lack of better terms, be able to always pull from that base repertoire throughout the week and kind of go from there. So, for example, I'm in a division of 5, including myself this week. Brackets already came out. I've already seen it, and I have a very good idea of what the strengths and weaknesses are of every single one of my opponents that I'm going to be going up against. So throughout this whole week, I've installed and put myself in positions where I know that they're strong, so I can defend those. Mm-hmm. And like my defensive install, if you will, and then put myself in positions where I feel I have big advantages against them as well too. Sharpening of those tools and just being able to get to those positions, beat them to what they want to do or what I think they're going to use to counter with, and then from there also just executing as fast as I can. And I'll try to do that as many times as I can within that training session, specifically on Monday and Tuesday. And then Wednesday, any troubleshooting, and then Thursday again, just really refining that. And it just repeats every single week, even if I don't have a competition. So, like for example, in between the 18th, which is the Atlanta Open, all the way through December, probably competing on December 8th, up until that time, I will still go through the whole procedure, if you will, through the whole schedule, the whole regimen, and just constantly be doing that. Of course, as you know me, I'm one of those individuals that constantly, maybe every hour on the hour, update the competitor list of the next tournament. So I'm constantly looking and constantly trying to find what I can on these, just like the NFL, constantly looking at any tape that I can find, searching their Instagrams of their schools and watching them spar in the background when they're not even supposed to be there. Just constantly, I do that a lot. Constantly just like stalking them, if you will. But for me, it's part of the whole preparedness of it all. You have to be prepared if that's what you want to do. If you're on the competition track, you have to be doing that. You have to always constantly be looking ahead to the next opponent, next challenge, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of like, in a nutshell, and a very kind of grand overview, if you will, how that week, that training week looks like. Um, Other things with that, I don't roll more than my actual sparring time, so to speak, or training time on the mat, where I'm going up against another opponent where it's unscripted. I try not to exceed 60 minutes a day. I really, truly try not to do that. I do feel that there is it, everyone's got a point of diminishing returns. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, once you sit and once you reach that, anything that you do, you're not just breaking yourself. You're gonna take a little. You're gonna have to kind of devote a lot more time to recovery and everything else. Unfortunately, I had one of those days the other day, but like where I just pushed myself way past that allocation of rounds. And I paid for it yesterday. I had to really recover, had to focus on that, and couldn't really do as much as I wanted to. But that's normal. That's typical. That's every competitive jiu-jitsu athlete. Or any athlete for that matter in any sport. You could always push a little bit too much, and sometimes you need that check where a coach will come up to you and be like, "You're done for the day. Like you are done for the day." I had to do that for two individuals on Tuesday evening. They had gone through 3 hours of training already, and they were still sparring. And I was like, "Nope, nope, you're done. Take a round off. You are taking a round off." And go to the other person. Now you're taking a round off. And then 15 minutes still left in class. I'm like, no, no, no. You guys are done. Like, go home. Stretch out. Change your clothes. Get off the mat. I don't want to see you on the mat. Sometimes you have to do that. But yeah, make
And,
adjustments as you need.
and so I kind of so I have a few places we can go. I kind of just for a little extra context on this, when you specifically look at your week recovery wise, I
Mhm.
know I know you get massage. I know that you are big on, you've always been big on foam rollers.
Yes.
Kind of honestly, you sold me on foam rollers, something I've been doing way more. And I really do actually notice a difference with it, especially in season when, like you said, when we are training so excessively. We are training so much. And in jujitsu, you almost as a competitor, you're kind of having to balance that because you're going, that
Correct.
the other guys that you're competing against are trying their best to get right at the point of diminishing returns, and it's kind of this battle for all of us. But what are, just throughout the week, what are things you're doing? And then how are you deciding on what type of things you're doing recovery wise? How are you deciding on what days? Because I know that some days you'll go and you'll keep the same schedule, but you'll turn the training intensity way down.
Absolutely.
And so how do you kind of decide on that?
At the end of the day, the main thing and it does differ a little bit for everyone, but there should be one goal for, regardless of what age competitor you are, or even if you're just a casual. Um, Everything that you do, whether it be within a training session, within a lifting session, or what have you, everything that you do should never be so strenuous that it takes you off the mat. That it does not allow you to train the way that you wish to train the next day.
Mhm.
So of course there are going to be certain circumstances. For example, on like a Tuesday where I lift heavy in the mornings, and then in the evenings I also train hard as hard as I can. Then the very next day I'm going to be a little bit of a wreck.
Mhm.
And that's the case. Is I may not roll at all. I may just go in and teach class, and me moving on the mats is just going to be like, okay, I just want to move on the mats to retain mobility.
Mhm.
I do every single day. I stretch in the morning. First thing I do when I get up in the morning is I stretch, and I'll jump in the shower, turn that sucker as hot as I can, as I can stand it, and I will literally stretch in the shower.
Mhm.
It's basically my makeshift wet sauna, if you will. Um, you have to do it, and then I before every morning before I train, foam roll. You got to foam roll. You have to stretch. You have to work on your mobility. Another thing that I really got into as well too is muscle activation. Sam Spiegelman, one of my assistant coaches at New Breed, he is certified in muscle activation therapy. So it's the same stuff that, again, to draw another NFL parallel, that Peyton Manning used to rehab his neck, and had that one really extremely prolific year where he was breaking record after record in Denver. So I will make sure that I activate my glutes, my hamstrings, and my lats and and specifically my lats, so that way my back isn't just destroyed after a training session. You have to. You'll see sometimes like, and you see it all the time, especially with master competitors when they're walking off the mats. Like I would say, master 3 and up, when they're walking off their mats, they have that nice little kind of like hunch. It looks like they have a cane, but they're
Uh-huh.
actually walking. They're walking normally. They're just tilted a little forward like that. Yeah, like just they're usually what it is that their backs have tightened up and their glutes are gone,
Hmm.
completely gone. So they have to like I'll constantly be activating my glutes, sometimes mid training session, just to ensure that one I can walk straight and stand up tall, and I don't look like Stone Cold Steve Austin marching down to the ring all the time, and just being able to like I'm going to say perform or just do the things that I want to do and continue. So there's a lot of that. Every other week, I schedule either going to a chiropractor, uh, a phenomenal chiropractor. She's a longtime CrossFit athlete. Started training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. She's like my chiropractor slash physical therapist. So if there's something there, I pick her brain all the time. I'm like, okay, what do I need to do in order to uh, actively rehab something,
Hmm.
and make sure that it can just patchwork it up and just like, just basically just like band-aid it enough so that way I can make it through the next week or two. And she also knows my competition schedule, so she will always kind of just like really just say, okay, like, look, you need to kind of tone it down here and so forth and so on. Work on these rehab exercises every day. Sometimes like do it twice a day, just to ensure, just up until we can sit there and get to either it heals and fixes it auto corrects itself, or we get you to your next major competition, in this case, Nogi Worlds, at which point she'll go in and I'll see her a lot more often than I need to. And we'll go and fix whatever it is that I need to fix. Um, and then I like, so I alternate that with soft tissue work. Find a good masseuse, guys. Like sometimes you just need someone who can get in there and just like loosen things up. Just so happens, my soft tissue guy, he's like, his name is Brett. He's the best soft tissue guy I've ever gone to. He's also 6'6", about 260 pounds, former basis for Starship, and he is huge and just like gets up in there, and beats me up. So that's I see him like every other week for
Hmm.
sure, like ad not like consistently, and just like despite that foam rolling, you have to use that, do your muscle activation, and stretch. You've got to stretch, especially after a hard training session. Work a loosen, like just make sure your hips can get to the end range. Make sure that your hamstrings aren't that tight after after a competition training session, and just like stay consistent with it. um, Again, another NFL parallel. uh, you have to stay on schedule. For example, they always talk about quarterbacks being in the pocket and staying on schedule. Like, okay, for example, if it's a timing route, you have to stay on schedule. You have to hit that 3-step drop and then release that ball on schedule, on time. And you just need to be consistent with it and constantly be looking to recover yourself enough, if not at least enough, so you can perform the next task, if you will. But again, like we alluded to earlier, sometimes we're just going to go overboard. And on
Hmm.
those days, you just know, okay, like, look, you need to make sure that like there's something wrong with your back right now. There's something wrong with your QL, or there's something wrong with your psoas. You need to spend a lot more time on that. That means no training today. That means like you need to, or if you do train, there's certain positions you might not be able to do, and you have to adjust for that, and then can compensate with a lot more recovery work, a lot more digging out, like using a soul rider or lacrosse ball or kettlebell or what have you, to ensure that at least if that day is a quote unquote wasted training day, if you will, and they're never wasted, but if it's if you're not able to achieve everything that you want to that day that you normally would, the next day you should be able to achieve those goals and achieve to and perform at what you want to accomplish that day. So it's okay. It's just like, again, there's 52 weeks in the year. It's okay to have an off day. Not
Hmm.
everyone can be on every single week or every single day. That's fine. And I don't try to compensate. A lot of people will say, a student just asked me today, is just like, hey, I'm a little ill. I've had this cold, that's been going around the Midwest, where he hasn't trained very well, very much, if at all, in the past 10 days. And he's asked me, he's just like, hey, I've been like, prior to the 10 days, I've been training every single day. I've been following the regiment that you put forth for me and everything. I've just been doing everything that he's one of my clients, if you will, for the off for my human performance, my strength and conditioning programming that I've been doing as well too. And he's just asking me, he's just like, am I going to be able to still perform at Nogi Worlds? I'm like, absolutely. You have to listen to your body. Are you still moving around a little bit? Are you like hitting a sauna? Are you able to get to a pool and just literally just wade in the pool and move around? Because that's literally just active rest, for lack of better terms.
Mm-hmm.
You are literally still doing something to burn some calories, to get your body moving, still work on your mobility every single day. And just break a little bit of a sweat. Nothing crazy, like nothing strenuous. If you can't lift a weight, don't pick up a weight. If you can't train, if you don't feel that your lungs are good enough to train, and you might be hacking up a lung or something like that, don't train. It's okay. And then just like, you'll be fine. Your cardio, you're not going to lose cardio within 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen that it just doesn't work like that. You can ruin everything. Like, you're not going to gain anything more. You can completely ruin everything if you just become a raging alcoholic and then go to like eat at buffets and left and right, and just like take up smoking pack of cigarettes a day for within that 10 days. Sure, you can kill yourself that way, but as long as you stay consistent as best that you can and do the things to recover, get some sleep. Sleep is super important. Keep the mobility work up.
Mm-hmm.
The strength will come back. So he is planning on training this Saturday. And I even then I told him, I'm like, ease back into it. Don't go in and compete on Saturday. You have not trained in what's basically going to be about 2 weeks. Ease back into it.
Mm-hmm.
Just go ahead and pretend like you have a super fight every half hour. And just even then, you don't even care if you win or lose. Just go in and treat it as such, and just get to certain positions. And then next week, okay, let's turn it up a little bit. And then the next week after that, we'll turn it up a little bit. Again, it's like all these NFL parallels. It's a preseason game. You're not going to you're the first team. You're the first team offense and stuff like that. You're the starting quarterback. You're going to play 1 to 2 series for a preseason game. Next preseason game, okay, play a quarter. Or, well, I'm still going on the track that they have 4 preseason games. And then if you have the Hall of Fame game, which means now you have 4 preseason games, that third week leading up to it, if you can, sit there and basically play into the second half. And then you're going to be ready to go. Like, you have 3 weekends until Nogi Worlds. You'll be okay. You'll be fine.
And man, that piece of advice helped me so much this year. It's advice you had given me before. And this year I broke my ankle in the middle of competition season. And It was like, okay, well, I don't want to not get to compete. And just understanding, well, you only are going to have to compete in this little bit of time. But jiu-jitsu guys struggle to understand that. And they're like, no, I'm going to lose it. If I'm not training every single day hard and I'm not doing live rounds, I'm not going to be able to perform. But honestly, as I have started to understand like what true performance is, I've been able to realize like, oh no, I'm not losing my jiu-jitsu as long as I'm keeping my flexibility. I'm making sure that I'm not gaining weight because I'm not getting to train, and I'm just able to keep all those, get the movement when I can. And I've obviously, with a broken ankle, there's not a ton that you can do jiu-jitsu wise. And so I would get to, maybe positional spar on a Wednesday night, 2 or 3 rounds against people that I outweighed by 40 pounds. And that was the movement I got to do. But when I did that, it allowed me to compete and still perform well on the weekends through that injury. And man, it made such a big difference. But something that I wanted to kind of have you kind of conceptualize for me maybe, or kind of a problem I was going to give you to solve, because I think that's something you're really good at, is you don't, even though you have your specific routine, and that's usually what I ask you about on the podcast, you also are really good at kind of taking what your students, what your competitors are dealing with, and then saying, okay, this is what you're going to do. And so I kind of wanted to set you up with a question of, if somebody, they really want to be a good competitor and they get to dedicate maybe Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then their performance day or their competition day, whether they're in the gym or whether it's actually at the tournament, is Saturday. And so total of jiu-jitsu, including competition, they get to dedicate 4 days a week. What would, in your opinion, what should those 3 days of hard training or 3 days of what type of training should they be doing with that competition day being Saturday?
So just so I understand, 4 days a week, with that fourth day being the competition day, the
Yes.
day you have
So
to perform.
3 days of training,
Okay.
except for when you're in the gym and your competition day is Saturday.
So a lot of people, I would say that question has been asked to me like many, 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 many times. It's usually phrased in such a manner of like, I can only train 3 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. 3 days a week. Can I compete on Saturday? Like, is that enough to compete? Absolutely. 110% it is. Now, if we're just talking jujitsu, just the actual mat, how do you distribute what you're supposed to be doing on the mat, like on the mat?
Mm-hmm.
This is the way I would look at it. Monday, and let's assume that within those 3 days of training, that you can actually get 60 minutes of live training. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily mean that it's all hard, intense sparring. Sometimes it's positional drilling. Sometimes it's designated witter, what have you. Let's just say that 60 minutes. So call it 10 fives, or I'm sorry, yeah, 10 5-minute rounds with a minute rest in between, whatever the case may be. If that's all you can do, this is how I would break it down. I would first suggest that your training days are going to be Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday, with rest days on Wednesday, Friday, rest days on Wednesday, Friday, and of course Sunday, assuming of course your competition's on Saturday. The way I would look at it is as follows: Mondays are install. Like, you are just going to be going in, trying to basically just drill attacks. Just honestly, just trying to get to attacking positions, and that's it. And even just trying to sit there and finish subs and whatever the case may be. And I would say, from an intensity level, it never should go past 80%, so to speak. Never. Like, never, like at all. Maybe even lower. Maybe, to be honest with you, maybe even lower. You're thinking move fast to get to your spots, to get to say, for example, you're with someone who is a Spider Guard player and the knee cuts your pass. Let them set up their guard. And then, I know that you should never let anyone set up their guard, but let them set up their guard. And your whole goal is to get to that perfect knee cut position, or that perfect HQ position. And you're constantly just doing that within the training session. Obviously, of course, like, you might find yourself on the bottom. So you would have, say, for example, if you're a deep half guy, whatever position you start on the bottom, your whole goal is to get the deep half as fast as you can. And you're going at about, call it 70 to 80%, no more than that. Maybe even lower if you're going with someone who you outweigh by 40 pounds or what have you. You're constantly just moving through. Tuesday, performance day. That's where you're going to push. Like, you should be pushing at least 70% and getting pretty close to, I would say 95%, 90, I would say 90%, like that. There's no need for any one of us, if you're a seasoned practitioner already, to ever go 100% for an extended period of time. Like, maybe if you're in a scramble and you just fancy that, okay, I really want to win this scramble right now, turn it up. The second, whether you win or lose it, take it back down a notch. Take it back down. But you are performing. You're trying to you're trying to do every round that you can. You're trying to, within reason, of course. Again, do not hit that point of diminishing returns. Just take a breather if you need to. Do one more round after that. See if you if you got a little bit more after. So, for lack of better terms, but that hard training day is going to be that Tuesday. That 60 minutes of work that you can put in, where you are focused. You need to prepare yourself and dial in, and just be like, okay, today I'm going in to get pretty close to competing, but, like, I'm going to try to fight for every single position. I won't fight to the point that it's going to hurt me or do anything to that extent. And the reason why you're doing that is because, Wednesday, you're going to have the day off.
Mhm.
you're going to be able to sit there and reset your central nervous system. That performance day, from a athletic point of view, you want to really task your central nervous system. Get your body moving, get it to the point where like, okay, oh my gosh, I need to stop. Or it's like, I've got nothing else. Like we've all had those rounds, which are just taxing rounds where at the end you're like, God, I just got hit by a truck.
Mhm.
I can't, like my hands are shaking. I'm having a little bit of trouble getting up. It's not because you're old. You're just having a little trouble trying to get up or what have you. You're like, what just hit me? And you're just tired. Maybe you just blew out your, like you just blown, like you left everything on the mat there. Your central nervous system is taxed. It needs at least 24 to 48 hours to really kind of hit a little reset. And that's why take that off on Wednesday. Go for a walk, go for a swim, do a little hot sauna, what like do a little like dry sauna or what have you. Go get some cryo, whatever the case may be. Thursday, you're gonna come back and you're gonna sit there and roll for volume, but you're not going to necessarily roll for intensity. So you know how that first day, that Monday, you were rolling somewhere in between like 60 and 80%.
Mhm.
I'm rolling about 50 to 70%. And it's going to look it's going to look very similar to Monday, but it's going to be almost faster and looser. I like tonight, I have this one black belt that I roll with basically every Thursday. Justin Reyes. He is 135 pounds of the most jacked Filipino you've ever seen in your entire life. But he moves like he's spent way too much time in Colombia, if you know what I mean, getting some nose candy. But like, so he moves extremely quick and extremely fast, and his gas tank is significantly better than mine. So we'll just move. We just
Mhm.
constantly just move, and we're constantly getting grips, and he'll cut grips, and you're just kind of like playing. You're just literally just racing against each other. And you get your heart rate up and everything else. Get to a position, try to hold it, move on, try to transition from it. But that's what your Thursday should look like. Friday, whatever you need to do mentally to get ready to compete and to perform on Saturday, do it.
Mhm.
Everyone's a little different. Watch tape. Go watch a movie. Um, be like me and become a hermit and lock yourself in a hotel room and just like do nothing, like literally nothing. Um, Along with your normal recovery stuff that you would like, you should have a recovery regimen. Along with that, that's what you should be kind of focusing on. I do a lot of visualization and a lot of just like in my head strategic game planning. That's basically what I'm really doing. That's what I would do on that Friday, and then go perform on Saturday, and then tweak it as needed. But that's to me, if you can only train 3 days a week, that's what you're looking to do.
That man, that really, just to kind of reiterate, just to make sure I'm on the same page. So Monday is going to be an offense day, if you will,
Correct.
not going too intense.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday is going to be a just win day. You know, you're
Yeah,
going to go
perform.
to win rounds.
Mm-hmm.
And something just I should have asked this earlier, but when you're doing these type of performance days, like you were saying, maybe if I'm competing, I'm doing, and I know I'll have 6 matches max.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that you're going to take some breaks between rounds, in that training session?
If you need to, again, if it just so happens that you line up, um, let's just say there's 10 rounds during that session, during that sparring session. If it just so happens that your first 4 rounds, you lined up the heaviest hitters
Hmm.
on the mat with you, and all of a sudden you were just completely just cooked. Like you had a fresh person just like push you to the limit each and every single time for 20 minutes. Um, Metamorphosis isn't around anymore. No one fights a 20-minute match. So if
Hmm.
you need to,
Yeah.
take a round off. If you're like, especially if you know your cardio is already good. Like if you know, for example, if you're an adult black belt and you know you could push at the pace that you want, and be able to funnel people into what you want to do within that 10 minutes, and you could rest another 10 minutes and then do it again. Yeah, if you've done 20 minutes with 4 different people, and you're a little taxed, you're a little cashed, take a round off. It's
Mhm.
not that big a deal. It's really not that big a deal. Or if you absolutely feel you must do something, grab someone who is going to sit out anyway and just be like, I want to troubleshoot something. Keep putting me in 50-50, or keep putting me in worm guard or what have you, squid guard. And I'm just going to keep, and I want you to just hold the position, hold the initial grips. And I'm just going to kind of basically do a walkthrough this whole round for the next 5 to 10 minutes, whatever it is. I'm just going to do a walkthrough and just keep working my way out of it and stuff. Nothing crazy. But just like, I just want you to hold that initial grip. That's it. And
And
then kind of go from there.
and then from there, obviously Wednesday, day off, some type of
Mhm.
active recovery. Then to
Correct.
Thursday. Thursday is like I wouldn't call it as much of a flow day. It's more of a get a lot of jujitsu in day. See a lot of
Correct.
positions, get a lot of good movement, and then we're off again Friday and competing on
Correct.
Saturday. And so,
Thursday, I would say, is like your walkthrough day. It's like it's a sped up walkthrough. You're trying to hit as many positions as you can that you feel you're going to come up against, and you'll also find that you're going to come up against positions that you didn't even think of or might need a little refresher. And you're just going to kind of like, all right, well, if I just keep moving through here, the whole while you should be also taking into account of like what's happening as a result of your action or inaction, which most people do anyway.
mhm.
So, like, if this is assuming that you got a good basis of jiu-jitsu like already, and that you've competed here and there and stuff, you should be able to at least, okay, right after that round, within a minute, should be like, okay, that happened when I did this. I'm going to try to put myself in that exact same position in the next round, and I'm going to do something else and kind of go from there and just throw it against the wall and see if it sticks.
Man, okay. So that I think that is a great answer, because that's true. I think so many people, that is the reason that they don't compete. They say, well, I only have 3 days a week that I get to train and I want to compete, but I know that there are other guys training way more. But you and I both know that there are people that only get to dedicate 3 days a week that are
Right.
phenomenal competitors. And
Correct.
it's just a matter of, I really love that idea of offense day. And this is something I've actually been doing, but I guess I didn't really think about it as much. I have the days where I'm focused on winning, and then
Mhm.
certain days where I will only play defense. And it's now that you kind of put that into perspective, I really should make sure I'm focused on days where I'm only hitting offense. And
Right.
that will be, definitely a big tweak that I'll make from this interview. But something I actually have a different finishing question that I normally would do, but I had a different one with you today. So do you have any other just random pieces of advice for someone trying to be a competitor, someone who maybe has competed a few times, but recognizes, like, I don't consider myself a competitor yet? Do you have any pieces of advice or a specific piece of advice for someone like that?
First off, if you're doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, if you're in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and you're trying to just go as far as you can in Jiu Jitsu, let's call it that. You're a
Mhm.
competitor. You are a competitor. To some extent, you are a competitor. Whether you believe it or not, you are a competitor. You are competing with yourself. You are competing against the person that you see in the mirror that morning. You need to be better at jiu-jitsu today than that person you saw this morning. Like, just a little bit. Just try. You like, everyone's competing in jiu-jitsu, and and some people absolutely take that the wrong way, and they're like, oh, they have that one person in the gym that they're like, oh, I gotta find that guy and chase after that guy. Or you'll have the opposite where they try to dodge that guy, and I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't dodge that guy. Like, unless you're hurt, like, and you can't function, yeah, you should want to sit there and be able to try to, like, for lack of better terms, not, you know what? I'm not even going to use the word compete. You should want to train with that person, because what you're really doing is you're competing with yourself. You are absolutely competing with yourself. If you had a bad round with this individual, if you and I trained and you beat the ever living hell out of me on Monday, like, the very next time we have an opportunity to roll, I'm like, okay, Josh, let's roll again. And all I'm trying to do, and I should have an idea of what happened, like in that
Mhm.
round, or where it went wrong. Should have an idea, like, okay, Josh got to his knee cut. All right, well, I need to make sure that Josh can't get to his knee cut, right? Or if he does, I have an answer. And like, again, just going with those two different variables. Like, I'm going to do everything I can to prevent him from getting his knee cut. All right, cool. That worked. Great. It didn't work. No problem. I'm going to sit there and try to actually incorporate the defense or the escape from your knee cut and kind of go from there. And if I didn't do it, that's okay. It's really not that big a deal. It's the fact that you sat there and competed with the quote unquote lesser version of yourself that just got your butt beat the day before, the last time. And then you sat there and pushed yourself to like, all right, I need to figure something out, either preventative or reactive. And you tried it. You tried to implement it. That's you competing with yourself already. You're trying to improve. The art of improvement, as Kyle always sits there and refers to, is you being you competing against yourself. That is like that's just life. I mean, you're like, you should want to be better than you were the day before. But to answer it more kind of a classical way, my best advice to someone who wants to compete: one, don't be afraid. And I like, do not be afraid. It's what's the worst thing that can happen? You lose. All right. My best advice for people who have, and I tell this all the time to the kids, and I tell this all the time to the to any competitor for that matter. Have a place that you want to go to and eat and just shove your face full of stuff with. No matter what happens, win or lose, you're still gonna go to that place.
Mm-hmm.
My 16-year-old, she she's she was the most naturally talented of all my children in terms of being athletic and also Brazilian jiu-jitsu, just naturally talented. But she hates competing.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there and I told her, I'm like, hey, she always made a promise to me, like, Dad, I will compete in jiu-jitsu before my 10th birthday. I'm like, okay. She's 9 years old. Her birthday is February 28th. February 26th. Well, she's gonna read this. She's gonna watch this and be like, well, you don't know when my birthday is. February 26th. And on January 1st, New Year's Day, she tells me, like, Dad, I promised you that I would compete before I turned 10. I'm going to do that tournament on Valentine's Day. It was a Grappling Industries. And I'm like, that's 6 weeks from now. And you do know that you actually need to train jujitsu in order to compete jujitsu. She's like, yeah. She's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And she was like training once a week, if that, during that time. So I could tell she's getting nervous. I could tell she's getting nervous. I could tell she doesn't want to do it anymore. And I'm like, Maya, what is your favorite restaurant? And at the time, it's a trick question. I already know. She loves Olive Garden.
All right.
For some reason, loves Olive Garden. I hate Olive Garden. But anyways, and I tell her, I'm just like, we're driving to the tournament. I'm like, yeah, just drive with me and stuff. It's not a big deal. And I'm like, I want you to understand something. I don't really care if you win or lose. I want you to do your best. I just want you to keep fighting. From the time they say fight to the time that they sit there and say stop. Just keep fighting. That's it. And I want you to understand something. No matter what happens, win or lose, we're going to Olive Garden. She's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, we're going to Olive Garden. No matter how much I hate it, that's exactly what I said. No matter how much I hate it, we're going to Olive Garden, period. We stay there as long as you want. And then, it just takes all the pressure off. Because the fact of the matter is that, like, I tell this to young competitors all the time, early in the ranks. I'm like, go out there, compete, have fun doing it, have an experience. At the end of the day, if you win white belt worlds, or blue belt worlds or what have you and stuff like that, awesome. We're happy for you. I want you to understand something. The second after you get your medal and we all give you hugs, no one cares anymore. Like, no one cares anymore. We just want to go eat. We just want to do that. And we're just going to have to sit there and kind of just like go on to the next challenge. It's a great accomplishment, but I want you to understand something. It's all practice. It is all practice for when it counts.
Mm-hmm.
And even when it can, and it only really counts at black belt. And even then, it only really counts if you're at a major.
Yeah.
Or like, it only really counts if you're at a major or at the Worlds. That's it. So other than that, you could throw up goose eggs and it doesn't really matter. Just trying to stuff out. And it's not that serious, guys. Like, you are doing this for practice. You're practicing, like, it's just proof of concept. You're just trying to improve yourself. So be okay with quote unquote losing. There's that whole cliche, like there's that one like cliche is just like, oh, you never lose, you always learn. Doesn't matter. No, sometimes you lose. It's okay. And sometimes you go out there and have a really bad day. I've done it. I've gone out there and I'm like, I don't want to be here, but whatever. And you get tossed on your head and you're like, oh, when are we gonna go eat?
Can't wait to have Olive Garden.
Oh yeah, that's okay. And it's not a big deal. That's why it's one of my students, Mike Hagel, one of our black belts, he came from another team. And even TKO, it's like my running mate, if you will, who was always with me at Master 4 at middle. He he gave me like the most backhanded compliment I've ever gotten. I think he's like, Mark, I gotta tell you, you're like a really good loser. And I'm like, I'm gonna kill you right now. But no, like you're a really good loser. You're like, I mean, like you take losses really well. And I'm like, yeah, because it's not that big a deal. It's I can walk. I can nothing really changed. I lost a match. And like, am I going to stew on it? No. By the time I leave the bullpen, and I've told you this, by the time I leave the bullpen, I am just the same person. I'm done. Like whether I win or lose, like I shut it off and that's it. I've already sat there and formulated a game plan from the time I walk from the competition mat to the time that I exit the bullpen. Except for that one time at World Masters where I just hopped the fence and did all this. And you guys were looking for me. I was like, but by that time that I leave the competition area and make my way out of there, I'm over it. I'm like, it's not that big a deal. I'm just looking for food at that point. Yeah, but that's like my best advice. It's like to anyone who's looking to compete. It's all practice. It's all practice. And even if you do pull off a major win, it's still practice for the next one. That's all it really is.
Man, that is terrific advice. Mark, thank you so much for being on the show.
No problem. Thank you, Josh.
And that is the episode. I really think that people are going to get a lot out of this one. At least for me, I definitely got a lot out of this episode. And that's why I'm just so happy to get back to doing interviews. And that's also, like I kind of told you guys, we're going to maybe make a little tweak to the format on our Thursday episodes. And I'm just thinking, for me personally, I'm finding these deep dives that we've made famous on the podcast to start to get a little stale. I'm just running out of things to really dig too deep on for an hour straight, right? And so I had kind of a different idea on how we can tweak this format and make it a little more fun. And so that is going to kind of be the goal of this episode, or the goal of the next episode is seeing if we can get back to some really fun roots of the podcast. And so if you guys enjoyed this episode with Mark, I'm telling you, you absolutely need to listen to this Thursday episode that's going to be coming out. And I just would love to hear some feedback. I would love to hear if you guys enjoyed this new format. And so, yeah. Besides that, huge thank you to Mark Vives for being on this episode. I really just always seem to learn so much, especially when we talk about competition, we talk about training method. I get so many big ideas from Mark, and this episode was no different. And so next Tuesday, we have another pretty big interview. I think you guys will really enjoy. I think that you guys will always be shocked by the people that are willing to be on the ISAJJ Jiu-Jitsu show, because I'm always shocked by the people that are willing to be on the ISAJJ Jiu-Jitsu show. But besides that, I hope you guys are doing well in your training. I hope that all of our friends that struggle this time of year, as the seasons begin to change, hope you guys are able to stay consistent, stay on the mat, and then I hope that today's episode helps you guys suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu. Have a great day, guys.